Welcome to Right Sides Only.
Episode 3 of all things.
Do it for Dale.
I think no one gave us a chance to even pass the first episode, and here we are in episode 3. That's pretty ridiculous, I think.
That's about as high as you can count. I don't know what you're going to do next week.
1, 2... that's literally as far as I can go.
I figured it might be.
Yeah, so who has the time to count past 3? Well, apparently you do, because you're wasting your time listening to this podcast.
See, so
The worst one.
Unfortunately, we come to this recording. There's no big races or any controversy that happened.
Nothing happened over the weekend, so we're struggling to talk about things. Yeah, I did rewatch the 2019 Indy 500 while I was waiting for you to come over today.
Yeah.
So we can talk about that, or we could talk about the F1 championship race.
Oh yeah, the one that everyone.
Yeah, I don't think anyone
about.
cared. I don't think anyone actually watched it.
Shoot,
the joke is that
sketchy.
it's all anyone's been talking about for the past couple days. So super cool. And kind of a trend for NASCAR Twitter is NASCAR Twitter last year, barely anybody was mentioning F1. This year, everybody's talking about F1. So
yeah.
I got into it last year, and there was a couple of the guys that I would watch. I know Black Flags Matter. He talked about it several times. You know, now everybody's on it, so that's kind of cool. But what we want to talk about is the finale. And holy cow, it delivered. Now, whether or not you agree with what happened, it delivered an entertaining race that will be talked about for years to come. Did you get to watch the race?
I watched the last 12 laps of it. I got to see the exciting part because it just happened to be when I woke up. So I'm curious going into this. 4 laps to go. You have the wreck. Was it Latifi?
Yeah, that was Latifi.
Yep, he wrecked in 14. And you have the safety car come out. Obviously that had to be done. There's debris everywhere.
Toto Wolff actually was on the phone to Michael Massey asking him not to deploy the safety car because if he knew he did, it would bring Verstappen right behind him. So he was trying to convince him not to put out the safety car.
And I think it's funny because once I've listened to Hamilton's radio during that time, like a few times over, and he's talking about how there's too much debris they can't throw the green again.
Yeah.
While they were going through it, which obviously he's trying to protect his interest. I get it.
Yeah. So
this is the thing I want to ask you about, and I think it's the thing everyone's asking about. So double yellow comes out, 4 to go, coming to 3 to go. They clean up the track. They say they're not going to allow lap cars to overtake. Then they turn around and only allow the 4 that's in between first and second to overtake. From a NASCAR point of view, I go, the race director made a decision, and it's what he says goes.
Yeah, I'm in the exact same camp. So.
So you kind of agree with my stance on that. What do you think about that finish and how they did that?
So for me, the last thing that F1 or NASCAR or anybody would want to do is to have the biggest race of the year on the final lap get decided under what is essentially a caution. You know, if Kyle Larson crossed the line to win the NASCAR championship behind the pace car, that would not feel nearly as good as him, speeding through and winning. My
question is, how radical of a movement would it be for F1 to put in a green-white checker to say?
I think that you would have a lot of resistance to it just because that's not how it's been done.
Yeah.
In situations like that, it would have saved everybody's butt.
Yeah, because here's my thing. I don't like that much control going to the stewards because if you put it green-white checkered, they kind of have to go with whatever happens on track. They could call a penalty if they want to on somebody, but something has to happen for them to pull that trigger. If you just say, all right, guess we have to end it under yellow, you have to keep that call consistently, even if there's doubts about the running order or anything like that. So I honestly feel like the green-white checker needs to be kind of universal. I also agree with the fact that I don't think yellow flags should count in any form of motorsport. That is something that purists will shoot me for. But I feel like, kind of like the way short tracks do it, if it's yellow, the lap don't count because you're not racing.
Yeah, so the big thing about that is it's usually about mileage. It's just first to complete this amount of laps is whatever.
You're not competing for the yellow flag mileage.
No, you're not. And
so?
I see both sides of the caution laps don't count argument. For some races, it's like, man, I wish they didn't count caution flag laps because it would make the race so much better. Some races where you have cautions every 5 seconds, it's like if they did not count those laps, we would be here for 6 hours.
That's fair, but I feel like they should in making those rules go into it knowing, okay, let's say NASCAR. We're going to Martinsville. 500 laps might not be a good call. Maybe go to 400, If you go Kansas, for some reason, Kansas is just a demolition derby of 1.5 miles. You should go in there knowing that, and maybe instead of making it a 400-mile race, do a 350.
So the big moment to me in that race, the end, I'm going to give up to people were citing the rules about, like, you have to let, you don't. Well, there's also a rule in there that says the race director can do whatever he wants to.
Yeah.
That it's literally, he is the supreme overlord of that race. If he said, you know what, top 10, you're all disqualified for no reason. Theoretically, he could do that.
That stands.
You can protest it and be angry, and everybody be like, yeah, that was awful, but you could technically do that.
But I do feel like, okay, if you wanted to look at this from a purist standpoint to the craziest degree, a safety car would never exist. Everyone would just hit the virtual safety car and roll around at 60 miles an hour or whatever for the entirety of the time needed to clean it up. That way, whoever has, in this case it would be Hamilton, I think he had like a 12-second lead or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
He would not lose that lead because of someone else's wreck. When you look at this finish, you can go from what's kind of been normalized in American motorsports, where we get used to, well, if there's a wreck, you got to bunch up and
try it again.
You're right there. But if you look at it from a purist to the craziest degree, technically they would call any bunching of the field manipulation of the race.
Yeah. So what they could have done in this situation that a lot of people wished is they could have thrown a red flag.
And that would have been smart.
I mean, they could have done that. I don't think you want to throw a red flag just because it takes a lot of time. What's crazy about the pit stop?
The right call.
I think it probably would have been the better call. But what's crazy
took too
about
long to decide, so when that was an option, it was like 2 laps to go or 1 lap to go.
Yeah.
2, I guess.
What a lot of people will argue is that Max Verstappen pitted under the safety car. He got brand new red wall tires, the soft compound. He had a pace advantage over Lewis Hamilton, who was on like 40 lap old hards. Okay? So what they don't tell you, and a lot of people seem to forget in this, is that Lewis Hamilton could have pit right then and there and got new tires. They Mercedes actively chose to leave him out there on 40 lap tires knowing that a restart could happen. And then you see what happened. Now, you can argue about the other stuff, but that's the main thing.
If he would have went in, I think at this point they don't think a restart's happening.
Oh, I think they do, because Lewis Hamilton was on the radio yelling at them for not bringing him in.
I think, obviously, the driver wants new tires anytime he can get new tires. Yeah. That's just the way the drivers are. I think that the engineers, rightfully so, did not think that they were going to go back green. Because if you read the rule book and you leave out the race director can do what he wants, you clean up the crap, you let all the lap cars go, and then the next lap you go green.
Yeah, well, that's usually how it goes.
And when you're coming back to 3 to go, they're like, they have to protect that first place. Yeah. If he does go into pit road, you know what Verstappen probably don't do?
He probably doesn't pit and takes P1. But then if it does restart, then you have fresh tires. So I think the whole thing was a massive gamble.
Willing to take
the whole thing was a gamble.
When the World Championship is on.
Well, Red Bull always have the advantage, and they did, and this has happened and Lewis has come out on top multiple times, especially in 2018. The second car always have an advantage.
Yeah.
Because you just do the opposite of whoever's in front of you does. I think it's happened in Austria. It's happened to Max Verstappen several times where he's been in the lead, and then Lewis is pulled because Mercedes' strategy has been out unreal the last couple of years. This year it's kind of failed, and Red Bull's got the jump on them.
Yeah.
But they would pit at random times, it seemed like, to get a new set of tires, and they would have just enough laps to run the field all the way back and take P1. It's a risk that you had to take, and always the second car is going to have a major advantage. Here's one thing that I want to bring up to you, because you said you did not see the beginning of the race.
Yes, so I didn't. I missed the part that I've heard everyone talking about.
So this is the part to me. I think I agree with Michael Massey on a lot of things. He's a very let him race guy. Brazil, you could have been throwing penalties left and right for both drivers.
And Massey is the race director, correct?
Yes, he is the race director. It's a very almost NASCAR-esque let him race.
Yeah.
This is a moment where something should have been said or done. Prior leading up to this, Lewis is on medium tires, Max is on softs. Lewis gets a much better jump off the line because the Red Bull's kind of slow off the line. Lewis takes P1. This isn't going into turn 1. I think this is turn 3 or 4.
Yeah.
It's after the long jump. So
yeah.
If we go through this, this footage is actually from Areva, probably the best F1 game YouTuber on the planet. So watch this. Okay, so Max dives on Lewis. He has made the corner, especially right here. Boom. All 4 tires are in the track. All right? That is technically a clean maneuver. He has not done anything illegal. Lewis comes out and steps behind him and then just leaves.
Oh, that is egregious.
And guess what? He did not have to give any of that back or the spot. So when you're going into the corner right here, Max is ahead. Technically, the lead of this race at this moment belongs to Max Verstappen. Boom, Lewis goes off track, gone.
I don't know how I feel about that move.
That's the advantage that he got. Max went into this corner leading, and Lewis is now 2 seconds up the road.
So here's what I think, and you can kind of give your 2 cents. I think that was a dive bomb by Verstappen.
It is a dive bomb, yeah.
That was pretty ridiculous. I do think that Hamilton cutting through, he could have let that off because of how aggressive that was, but I don't believe he should have had that much of an advantage.
Look at that.
So question, is there a thing, I don't know, I know you used to have iRacing a little bit, I don't know how long you had it for, but have you seen where when you cut the track it says give up 0.3 seconds within the next?
Yeah, you're supposed to, they do that in F1 game too.
F1?
Yeah, it's usually you have to hand the place back. So what a lot of people are saying at this point,
I would argue that the place back is a little too much because while if you want to get technical, that might be his turn. He runs him off the track completely.
You know what happened last week?
He does not give him room to be on the other side.
That happened last week. Max went off the track and got an advantage, and they forced him to give that back. This was this week. Lewis went off the track, and they did not force him to give that back.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of ridiculous.
So Jeddah, Max got run off the road, and he had to cut the corner on a much smaller corner. This was literally like a quick corner, and he was forced to give that spot back.
Advantage. He had to give it back.
Yeah, it's considered gaining a lasting advantage. And then Lewis doesn't. So, like I talk about a lot of times, what goes around comes around in motorsports. Lewis got away with one there. Currently, he's due to get one back. Also, this was hilarious. That's a picture of the stewards that decided not to make Lewis give that back. It's a royal family is the joke. But that was just pretty nuts. I also like this tweet by Raw Gator. This would not be a penalty in F1. And it's just this dude flying.
Well, that's a Chase Briscoe at an Indy road course.
Yeah. Is that not hilarious?
That is
I love so that. Good. It was cool. You can say whatever you want about the end. I think everybody, depending on who you take sides with, is going to think about that race differently and what you think. So Max fans, the greatest call in the world. Lewis fans, devastated. I want to talk about this for a second because I think that this goes a lot in motorsports and sports in general. I don't think anyone other than Lewis fans were rooting for Lewis to win that championship. All of the neutral fans between them, everybody's rooting for Max because Lewis has won 5 straight.
Okay, you think about Jimmy Johnson.
4 straight. Yeah, that's my point, is Jimmy Johnson.
When Jimmy Johnson won his 5 straight in the Cup Series, I know obviously my opinion doesn't speak for everybody's, but as a kid that watched NASCAR, I hated Jimmy Johnson. And he's actually a stand-up guy.
Yeah.
I had no reason to hate him
it's the same
other than
concept.
He spoiled the show and won every single thing. And I think it's the same idea here is that you will have the people that are fans of him, but everyone else is ready for somebody else to win. Especially with someone, correct me if I'm wrong, as popular as Max Verstappen.
Yeah, he won the most popular driver.
That makes sense. Super Max. I mean, that is an interesting thing where we look back and once the career's over, we're like, whoa, that dude was awesome. I respect him so much. But we're the ones booing him when he's doing these achievements.
I was really warming up to Lewis Hamilton because I didn't like it. It was like, oh, he wins everything. And I was starting to really warm up and see the greatness in his drive. I have a Lewis Hamilton t-shirt in my closet. Where my opinion changed on Lewis Hamilton was Silverstone. When he took out, when him and Max incident took.
Was messed up.
More about his kind of behavior afterwards. But a lot of people, he has lost. I have never seen someone go from hero to villain so fast. The Max incident.
I mean, he's in motorsports. 7 is the magic number.
Yeah.
You don't go above 7 championships.
The 7 depression is still on.
And lost it.
Mm-hmm.
Because, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not a big F1 fan. I wasn't watching a lot. But he was in the lead at the beginning of the season.
Yeah,
lost
at
it
the
to
beginning.
Verstappen.
Yep.
And he tried to make a comeback, just couldn't make it. I imagine he had this picture of being able to be the one to get 8 championships.
Yeah.
Obviously, I know they probably don't think about American motorsports at all, but in almost all of professional motorsports, and then he saw that slip through his fingers, and he got the way he was.
The magic number has always been 7. In NASCAR, you have, of course, the 3 7s. We have Jimmy, Dale, and Richard. In F1, you have the 2 7s. You have Michael Schumacher and Lewis Hamilton. I've dubbed it the 7 depression just because you just can't. It's just the magic number.
Yeah.
That's the title. Now, a lot of times in American motorsports, 7 has been obliterated. John Force and a lot of drag racing guys, they blew by 7.
I mean, when you don't have to turn.
Yeah, it's a little different when all you do is press a gas pedal, which is clearly not it.
It's not true.
All you do is press a gas pedal. Yeah, so the 7 depression, big deal. Nobody can win more than 7. Lewis tried. Lewis did not. It's kind of cursed, I guess. But also, I think that this event, as a NASCAR fan, made NASCAR look so bad.
Why is that?
I think F1 the more I've learned and done stuff about F1, the more NASCAR has room to improve. F1 has taken the beautiful route of being media first. So like their media presence, everything they do is media first because that's where the fans are.
Yeah.
That's where the advertising is now, is social media. So I put this together earlier. I know Kenny Wallace and some other people were talking about how Kyle Larson went to Disneyland and no one recognized him in his home state of California. No one recognized him. And my kind of immediate thought to that was, well, no one knows who he is. No one knows who Kyle Larson is. I think a part of that in motorsports is that when you see them, most of the time they're wearing a helmet. You know, I know what Kyle Larson looks like because I'm an avid NASCAR guy. If I just watched one race, I would probably not know what Kyle Larson looks like. That's fair enough. But I did some social media digging this morning to show a little bit about the disparity, how media first shows results. The official numbers here, these are all from Instagram, so, of course, there are underlying factors to all of this, so don't take everything I'm saying as concrete fact, just something to think about.
Yeah.
NASCAR on Instagram, that I literally just said 5 seconds ago and already forgot. NASCAR has 1.5 million followers. You know, that's quite a few people.
Yeah.
Chase Elliott, sport's most popular driver, 437,000 followers. Ryan Blaney has 216,000 followers. Kyle Larson has 274,000 followers. Bubba Wallace has 466,000. So he's technically has more followers than Chase Elliott. We go to F1. F1 has 16.5 million followers. The Paddock Club, which is a thing I follow, that just posts pictures. There's a thing called the Paddock Club. People can go in there. It's like very expensive. They have 466,000 followers. This is a event at a racetrack that has more followers than our sport's most popular driver. Verstappen, 7.5 million followers. Mick Schumacher has 2.2 million followers, which I thought was funny when he was at the NASCAR race, and NASCAR was like, hey, Mick Schumacher. And technically, he has more followers than your entire race series does.
Yeah.
Lewis Hamilton, because of mostly his other ventures, has 26 million followers. Lance Stroll, Sir Lancelot, 662,000 followers. And then looking at some other leagues.
And you have to think of it this way, too. One, F1 is an internationally marketed sport.
I have a counterpoint to that.
Another point, F1 has 20 competitors. NASCAR has 40. While I know you could argue that most of the attention goes to the top 15 and they should at least have a lot of followers, it's still the idea that there is 40 cars out there. So you have about 33 consistent drivers versus 20. And you have, I don't know if you know F1's TV ratings at all. In all reality, you have about 3.5 million people watching the Cup Series on a weekly basis, give or take, depending on the track in the week. Texas is always going to get under that because Texas is a piece of garbage that should probably be turned into a garbage facility. While I do agree that they do marketing better, they do media better, I think that it is, I don't want to say an unfair comparison, hard comparison to make because of the different levels of where the sport is. NASCAR is under F1. That's why I wish that they would just get off their high horse and do a doubleheader and NASCAR Saturday, F1 Sunday.
That would be so cool.
Just imagine
do it
this.
at Miami. Oh,
imagine this. Thursday, Truck Series F2. Friday, Xfinity Series. Saturday, Cup Series. Sunday F1.
You can do it Thursday trucks, F3 Saturday.
Okay, so F3 does follow the circuit?
Some races. The F2 is not glued to F1, so there's a lot of races where they don't travel together.
Okay, see, that's where I didn't know.
Yeah. That would be super cool. So you're talking about the numbers. The 2021 Formula One season was the most watched ever in the United States. They averaged about 934,000 viewers on ESPN, usually early in the morning. That's up 54% from last year. 54% in a year is ridiculous.
It's a lot.
And to give you some ideas about some other countries, the first one I see right here, which is pretty cool, in the UK, because everybody thought Lewis was going to get his 8th title, they made a deal where it was shown on public TV. You didn't have to pay to watch F1. And that's 7.4 million in just the UK.
That's the point that I'm trying to make.
A lot of people watching that.
Yeah.
So that's my point. But then you're also, it's kind of a counterpoint, but also not exactly. You said it's international, whereas NASCAR is mostly an American thing. So here's some other purely American sports leagues, except for one or two exceptions. The NFL, America, 22 million followers. That's 20 times more than NASCAR.
Yeah.
NBA has 61 million.
Yeah.
Of those players, Steph Curry has 38 million. LeBron has 104 million. And fun fact I figured out while watching this, JoJo Siwa, that girl on YouTube, she has 11.3 million followers.
Okay, but here's the thing. You're still talking about sports that are radically more popular than NASCAR.
Why?
Because that's the stick and ball sports that everyone can get into. NASCAR
you just like watching things with balls in it, don't you?
No, I actually don't watch any sports.
You don't like balls?
No.
Oh, man, I love me some balls. Anyway, continue.
But no, those are the stick and ball sports that everyone loves and everyone can play in their backyard or right down the street at the basketball court. With NASCAR, it's always been at a slight disadvantage because you can't do that.
Yeah, I'll give you that point.
And that is a big part in America's society, is like you want to go do what these people are doing. NASCAR, you can't do that. NBA, you can. You can go down the street and play basketball with the people in your neighborhood. Football, you can do the same thing at school or whatever until the teachers yell at you to stop tackling each other.
Listen, it was one time in the hallway, Miss Fields. I don't understand your problem.
Just because he split his head open don't mean we got to stop.
Just because Timmy died doesn't mean we need to stop playing football.
So I would argue that while they could do better with media, I don't think that it's as drastic of a change between these stuff as you're thinking it is, just because of the mass difference of sample size. I want to see NASCAR do better with the media. I want them to take more chances on. I know they're talking about. I think they've already recorded it. It's just a matter of getting it out there. The Netflix series that's kind of like Drive to Survive, following Bubba Wallace in the playoffs.
I think they started that on ESPN last night or something.
Did they?
I think it might have been the E60 for Bubba Wallace.
Well, you know what kind of upsets me a little bit?
What would that be?
I'm all over NASCAR news. I didn't know about it.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know about it till like 2 days ago.
What the heck?
My point.
I know, and that's what I'm saying.
I'm not saying like major overarching change. I'm just saying that NASCAR could work on the little things.
Yeah.
Because the little things make a big difference.
Yeah.
It's little things like having a quality video game. I've watched F1 not as long as a lot of people, but a major thing that got me into F1 was playing the F1 game.
Yeah.
And there's so many stories like that of people trying out the F1 game and loving it and getting into the sport. If you tried out NASCAR Ignition right now, you would not get into NASCAR.
Yeah.
That's just, I'm sorry,
that's
motorsport
true.
games, but you have a terrible product. That's a major bridge for bringing in new fans, is the extracurriculars, the little stuff, the social media posts. Like, even the small things I talked about, I was sending, when the Austrian GP was happening, when F1 came to the States, which was a massive success for them, by the way, everybody had cool custom helmets. And all I did for that whole week was just send you pictures of cool custom helmets, because that got me excited. And NASCAR doesn't do it. They're just, hey, we're going to be here this weekend.
Yeah.
Do something to get me excited.
Well, I think also something that kind of hurts their ability to do that is, how many races does F1 have?
Well, it's kind of varied the last couple of years, but usually you have like 20 to 30, depending on the year. Last year was very different with the shortened schedule because COVID, but but there's not nearly as many races, which is another point.
Here's my point. You have 23, 25 races in how many different countries?
This year there was 22 races.
22 races. In how many countries?
I think 19 or 20. Because like Italy, you have multiple races. They had 2 Austrians.
So here's my point of view is that in NASCAR, you're marketing to people that there are races within 3 hours of them, maybe 3 times a year. For us, I know we have Martinsville that's 3 hours away. We have Bristol that's 2 hours away. We have Charlotte that's 2 hours away. That's 2, 4, that's 6 races within 3 hours of us. And we don't have to cross any international borders to get there. F1, how many American Grand Prix was there?
Uno.
You had to attract. If you wanted to go see an F1 race and you lived in the continental United States, you had to travel there for that one event. NASCAR, that's not the case. I think Darlington's within 2 to 3 hours of us.
Yeah, I think it is.
Which would mean that 8 races are within 3-hour drive.
We can make it, especially if they open back up the Rock and everything for races. We'll be set.
Yeah, I mean, and that's obviously because we're in the prime market area. Kansas doesn't have a bunch of tracks within 3 hours. Auto Club doesn't have a bunch of tracks within 3 hours. That one NASCAR track in Alaska exists, but that's it up there.
I think we should race there.
Yeah.
In the pouring snow.
Yes. I think that we have talked about F1 a lot longer than we planned on today.
I think we need to become an F1 only podcast. Anyway.
I don't agree. I would be so dumb.
Transitioning into other things. Wow, what a smooth transition. Today was another day of the NASCAR Next Gen test. Ricky Spinhouse spun it.
Spinhouse.
Also, just a couple minutes ago, Tyler Reddick absolutely destroyed the barriers going into pit road. People say he's fine, which is great.
He's fine.
They said he was fine, which is fantastic. And also, breaking news: David Gilliland Racing has signed Haley Deegan to come back next year in a surprising move to absolutely nobody.
Yeah, I honestly kind of thought it may have been confirmed already, but I wasn't
sure.
it
was too. I didn't know that it was a 1-year deal. New tracks.
Yes,
we talked about them last week. We talked about all the new tracks except for Road America. Please don't notice that we didn't talk about Road America. We talked about all the tracks.
I
think you had a couple more things that we wanted to talk about for new tracks that are coming in next year. A quick throwing this in right now. Road America, good.
Road America,
good
was
race.
Good,
okay,
yes.
Moving on.
I do like the tradition of it being on American weekend.
That was a good. People showed up.
Yep.
It was a good race.
I've been wanting Road America to have a Cup date for a while.
Yes,
I'm glad it finally happened.
it did too. That was a great race.
I'm very curious to see how the next gen car does at road courses because I know it's supposed to be really good at them.
I don't know what the next gen's supposed to be good at. I don't know if it's good at anything.
It's looking like it's going to be good at some stuff.
We'll see.
Especially if it sounds like they're testing 670 horsepower.
Yeah, they're testing higher horsepower
That's
today.
better
Yep.
than 550. So
everything's
better
than 550.
Lift. And
Dear NASCAR, give us more horsepower.
And here's the thing: if you give them good tires, Goodyear. If you have to lift at the beginning of the run, you're really going to have to lift at the end of a run. I'm hoping that Goodyear can not suck and bring us good tires to do this. We're going into new tracks.
Going back to Indy.
Yes, technically.
Indy.
But I want to go through this lower series all the way up to the upper series to Cup. So we'll start in the truck series. They are going to Lucas Oil Raceway, otherwise known as IRP. They actually held races up until 2011 for the truck series, and I do believe what was at the time the Busch series, Xfinity now. Actually, it may have been Xfinity in 2011. Or not Xfinity, Nationwide. They also held the SRX series last year. I think that this is going to be a good move. Anything that gets more short tracks on the schedule is a good call. It'll be an interesting short track because they talked about how old the pavement was in 2011. And I don't know. I meant to look this up and I forgot to. I don't know if it's been repaved. Because I would imagine if you lose dates from 2 of the top 3 series in the nation, you're probably not repaving after the fact.
Or you repave in a desperate attempt of like, hey, come back.
Yeah.
Please come back.
And maybe they did. But if that's the case, then it's a very interesting track. It has almost no banking at the bottom, and it goes up to about 7 degrees at the top. So cars can spread around a little bit. You might actually see the top line be a good way to go on restarts. So that'll be a good move. Do you have any kind of comments on that track or know much about it?
I don't know it well enough to be able to tell you one way or the other.
I watched the 2011. I watched some of it. I didn't watch the end of it.
How far away is that from the nearest little metro there? Do you know?
I'm not sure. Close enough that we didn't race there because of Indianapolis.
Well, I just hope we have a race in Indianapolis where people actually show up.
Yeah.
Like I said, I watched the 2019 Indy 500 again. Like, and the 2021 Indy 500 is the same. It was so cool to see people there. I'm just mad that no one shows up for Indy anymore.
Yeah,
Anyway.
it's sad. And I feel like they need to go back to the oval, but I harped on that last week, so I won't say nothing. I feel like that's going to be a good move for the Truck Series. I want that to move over to the Xfinity Cup Series. I hope that what they're doing is slowly getting some short tracks back in the mix by giving them truck dates, because they don't necessarily have to be Cup ready to have a truck date. So I'm hoping that they kind of transition all those into having Cup dates down the road.
I think we need to get more figure eights on the calendar.
I'm just letting the silence happen, but that was such a stupid call. I mean,
Demolition
that's Tony
derbies.
Stewart at Talladega vibes.
Demolition derbies.
Well, I think we need to run the thing backwards. Half the field go forward, half the field go backwards.
That would be awesome. You know what the TV ratings would be for that race? They'd be insane.
And then the title of the time slot would just be "Watch People Die."
A mass loss of life today at Talladega Super Speedway.
And that'd be before it happened. They just know. Anyway,
You know it'd be Quinn Houff.
oh gosh,
You know it'd be Quinn Houff.
the comedy show's over. Rest in peace, Quinn Houff. All right, so Xfinity Series. This is one I'm actually curious about. Portland International Raceway.
It's cool in IndyCar. I have no idea about stock cars on it, though.
I'm very curious. So it has a lot of long straightaways and then sharp turns. So
that hairpin, that hairpin at the end is gonna be brutal.
I can't remember what exact year the race was, but I watched an ARCA race recently that was at Portland. Granted, this is ARCA. It was a wreck fest. It was a complete wreck fest. Oh, it was, looks like 2021. It was this year. I couldn't remember if this year, last year, or if it was just within the last few, because I think Oregon is pretty close to California with their COVID rules and all that stuff. I am excited, and I feel like it's going to be, without as many braking zones as there is, I think that's going to be an awesome track to go to. I feel like it's going to be a sleeper on the schedule that we don't expect to be great, but I feel like it's going to be. Dale Jr. is talking about on his podcast, The Download, how he wasn't thrilled for that track specifically, and I kind of hope that he has to put his foot in his mouth a little bit on that one.
Yeah, I think it's a cool track.
Love Dale, but
I don't know if I would want to race on that track forever, but I'd like to try it and see how it goes.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that's worth a shot. I don't think the Upper Series has ever raced there. If they have, it hasn't been in recent history. I'm not sure how old the track is. It seems like it will be a good track for us to try out.
Well, you never know how it's going to go until you actually try it. So
yeah,
I'm up for it. Hopefully it's cool. Watching the ARCA race highlights at the moment, everybody's just running all over the place.
Oh yeah, it was hectic.
But hey, that's the nice thing about doing it. If you go there and it's an absolute failure, just don't go back.
Yeah, which I honestly don't expect it to be bad. I think it's going to be a good race. I'm truly excited for it. It's narrow during a lot of the track, so it's not really a street course vibe because there's not walls on both sides, but you don't have a lot of room to work with, and you have to fight for the room. And I feel like I want the Truck Series to race there a little bit.
Yeah,
because that would be
that would be pretty nuts.
But
that would be the mass casualty event we were talking about.
Exactly. But it was a very solid race. Granted, a wreck fest, but I think it'll be a good track for us to visit.
Yeah, so let's take a look about how this kind of looks, because I think, this is the same place. IndyCar races here a lot. No, they do not do the hairpin. I like racing Portland on Forza. Yeah. And they do the hairpin. So as long as they don't do that hairpin, I think they'll be okay. But that hairpin is absolutely ridiculous.
I think we should take Cup cars to Long Beach, but have you seen that track?
Yes.
It is stupid.
That one with the hairpin?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's nuts.
They would need to fix that. But other than that, that's something I'd like to see down the road. Going to move on to the Cup Series. We're going to save the elephant in the room for the end of the list, but I want to talk about Atlanta. Repave. I'm scared. I am saddened. It had gotten to a point where it had to be repaved. We literally had to stop because the track was coming apart. I understand. But I've kind of lost hope in SMI repaving tracks because Kentucky is dead. Texas should be. And they put dirt on Bristol.
Just how about leave the tracks how they are is the only thing.
So here's the details of the repave. It was 55 feet wide in the past configuration. It's going to go down to 40 feet wide. So it is going to be a lot narrower. I think that is just to keep the infrastructure in the same place and allowing for the banking change, with the banking going from 24 to 28 degrees. I'm a little curious how that goes because I feel like that's an attempt to, they've kind of talked about it in the past, trying to make it a super speedway-esque race, because one of the big draws of Atlanta in the past has been that it wears on the tires. It's old pavement, and that's not the case anymore. You don't have to really lift as much anymore because it's not old pavement. A little nervous about that one, not gonna lie.
Yeah, I haven't done as much in research on the effects of repaving as I should have. I just know that when they did it, people were not happy, and I think, especially with the drivers being not happy, and I think those are the guys that you should probably ask before you do anything.
So here's what happens. Here's the reason why repaves are so notoriously bad. You go from a track that has all these characters from usage, and then you smooth everything out. Mm-hmm. So when you smooth everything out, well then, whatever that fast line is, whether it's the bottom or if it's got progressive banking up at the top, that line is the only line you can have all that speed on because everything has the same texture. Once parts of the tracks get wore out, then the other lanes are smoother and allows for more grip. So that means that you may not be traveling the fastest line, but you've got more grip, so you're able to carry more speed, if that makes sense. Yeah. You have to get it right when you repave, or it's going to lead to bad racing for a little while.
Was it the Kentucky that got repaved, or was it who was it that got repaved that just really ruined it? Or was it Texas?
Kentucky was bad. Texas ruined it.
I know Texas really got bad.
So when they repaved it in 2017, they thought they were making a good move, and I think they did the same thing Kentucky, where they made turns 1 and 2 different from turns 3 and 4. Turns 1 and 2 at Texas is wide, like it's really wide, but has very little banking. While turns 3 and 4 is the high banking Texas we all knew and loved from the early 2000s. Kentucky, I can't remember what they did. I think turn 3 and 4 was less banking. Both times they tried that, the tracks are basically dead. I feel like...
Didn't a lot of people really, really enjoy Texas until then? And now it's people don't want to go back.
Exactly. And here's the thing. They have poured so much money into that track that I bet they don't want to pour anymore. I bet they're kind of accepting that it's probably going to die. Because...
good. I mean, you reap what you sow.
I wonder if this is what happened. Texas dies. SMI sells the property as property. Buys COTA.
Interesting.
I don't...
you know what?
How
How about...
random thoughts.
You know what?
Dylan,
No, don't let them buy COTA. I don't want them to ruin COTA. I think COTA is a great course. It's perfect. Don't touch COTA.
That's the thing. It's already been paved. It's good. If it's grade A or grade 1, whatever F1 needs to race there, I don't think it needs to be touched for a while.
I think it's fine.
Now, when it does need a repave, rest in peace, COTA.
I think it's fantastic. So,
but Atlanta, nervous. I hope it goes well. Next is probably my favorite, and because I don't think there'll be much controversy with it, or we don't have questions about it that much, it's Gateway.
I like Gateway. I vote yes on Gateway.
Gateway is a fan favorite in the truck series.
Very true.
To save Bob Pockris some work, it does have lights most of the time.
When they work.
Yeah.
This is the one I'm excited for.
Yeah, I'm excited for it, and it gives a track to a market that's kind of been neglected since Chicagoland got kicked off the schedule, which...
Bring Chicagoland back.
Please. There were so many tracks you could have took off that were mile and a halves. Good taking off. Atlanta's been struggling with attendance, and it hasn't been the best racing recently. Could have took off. You did take off Kentucky. You could have took off Texas. You could have took off all these other tracks, but you chose Chicagoland, and it makes me sad. But it's a good track. I'm excited to see what it turns into for the Cup Series. I think it's going to be a great racetrack and a great market to be in. And last one, the big papa of controversies when it comes to new tracks.
Not controversial to me. I think it's going to be great.
I think it is too.
If it's bad, it's on NASCAR.
Yeah. So, LA Coliseum, the Clash. I think the Clash is a perfect time to try this out.
A great first test for the next-gen car.
I have an opinion.
Make it known.
All right, I will. We want more short tracks, right?
Yes.
All the short tracks, I would say most of the short tracks in America cannot handle 40 pit boxes. I think heat races need to come back to NASCAR. I say come back. They need to come to NASCAR.
Bold prediction. Bold prediction.
I think it will be a hard change to make. Here's my thought process. You have a couple practice sessions because if you're going to eliminate some cars, they need to have every shot to make it. It needs to be their own fault they didn't make it. Have single car qualifying, split them into 2 heat races, and let's say a track can only hold 30 pit boxes. 30 cars make the main show from those 2 heat races. Top 15 from each make it. If you want to make qualifying matter more, the top 5 single car qualifiers are locked in.
I see nothing wrong with that. I don't know enough about the heat racing scene to be able to give you a straight up on that.
Yeah, so here's the interesting part. So you have the heat races, and you'll know what position they need to make it, right? Let's say 15th for a particular race. You know what that also does? It gives TV time to the lower teams who are fighting to even make the race.
That's not bad. That's
because you're watching that
point.
bubble, and all that TV time is going to make that sponsor value go up. Because how many times do you see Quinn Half's car on the never mind, every week he wrecks.
Well, he wrecks quite often.
So how many times do you see Timmy Hill's car?
Not often. Also, he doesn't wreck as much, so.
Exactly.
You mean, what is it, Xfinity Series owner Timmy Hill?
Yeah.
The legend?
Oh, yeah. The Intimidator.
The Intimidator.
So I feel like that should be something that we should pursue not only in exhibition races, but I feel like a season race at Bowman Gray. Well, Bowman Gray will be hard to do because the pits are on the outside. Go to New Smyrna. Go to, which I think they could actually handle it, but go to South Boston. Go to all these tracks. Integrate them to where the short track scene is normalized. And what you see on TV with NASCAR Cup Series is what you see on Friday night when super late models race there. Thoughts, concerns?
No, I don't have any major concerns with that other than the fact that it's just different and you have to get everybody on board with it.
Yeah.
The big thing about going to small track like that is just purely capacity. Where do you put the haulers? Where do you put the car? Where do you put the people?
And that's what I'm saying. So I feel like the way they would need to do this is, especially in the beginning, before all the money is funneled to the tracks from TV deal or whatever, feel like they would need help from local law enforcement, which sounds sketch, but I promise it isn't. But just
bring the SWAT team.
You sell the tickets in advance. If the tracks don't have a good website, you sell them through NASCAR's website, Ticketmaster, whatever. Sell the tickets in advance. Know what you can hold. Plan for that parking. Put it out there that there is no coming to the track to buy tickets that night.
Yeah.
If a track can hold 5,000 fans, you sell those 5,000 tickets. 1, that makes that ticket a hot commodity.
That price will probably go up.
And 2, it gives money to tracks that may be struggling.
Mm-hmm. Well, NASCAR's going to take a lot of that.
Well, Dover has actually announced, because they were a public traded company before SMI bought it, that I think it was like 70% of their income was TV money.
That's
Ticket
not bad.
sales is icing on the cake.
That's pretty good.
Anyways, that's my 2 cents. I figured we should go to short tracks, normalize that scene, make ARCA late models. But anyways,
my big thing would just be have NASCAR inject more money into the short track scene.
Yeah.
Have like your NASCAR Roots series. Give them some sort of TV time. Have something on the website where you can just promote them more.
Yeah.
You know.
Which I feel like the local short tracks may be a little harder to do. But I feel like I think the ARCA series is a little bit of a mess, and it would be a little bit less of a mess if you, instead of using 8 to 10-year-old Cup cars, use late models.
That would be. I think that's kind of cool.
It'd be Cup, Xfinity, Truck, Super Lates. If you wanted to do regular late models and limited late models, or if you wanted to mix it up and do Legends somewhere in there or something. Just
Bandoleros?
Yeah, no, not Bandoleros.
Darn.
But just normalize what you see on Friday night at Greenville Pickens, at Hickory, at Tri-County, at all these tracks, because it's not normalized right now. When we started going to races, I had to get antiquated with what is at the track. There's 3-5 races?
Yeah.
What's that?
A lot of stuff.
What's this division?
Yeah, who are these people? Why is that car
what's a
there?
bandolier car?
What the heck is that? Yeah.
And I like genuinely learning what the difference between a limited late model to a late model to super late, all that kind of stuff.
If you need help with that, there's a great Slap Shoes video.
Yeah, that's if you want to know the honest truth, that's where it helped me. I kind of had the idea, but it helped me kind of nail down what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Just normalize that stuff, and it'll help everyone in the ecosystem. That's above my pay grade. I'm just sitting here with a mic. I'm 19, so I know nothing.
Nobody's listening anyway.
Exactly. So, last thing we're gonna do, because we are running on a long episode today. This will be packed. We're gonna go to just run through quickly tracks that we expect to see in the next few years. We went through all the new tracks that are coming, unless we goofed like Road America, and just kind of run through the details of ones that we expect to see. Nashville Fairgrounds.
It's gotta happen.
So we have commitment from the mayor, which granted means nothing. It means he wants to do it.
It's public support.
Yeah, it is public support, and he is going to help bring funding to the project. It also has to go through the Fairgrounds Commission Board, which has all the locals on there. They've voiced some not support for it.
Hey,
so,
do you want to have one night a year where it's kind of loud for a little bit and you make a ton of money off parking? No.
I know, yeah,
right.
It's whatever. But it's even going to be less track time than what it is now. I wish they'd understand that. But anyways, and there'll be sound barriers that they're trying to build in. That's part of their SMI is taking on that cost. But they last raced there in 1984. SRX raced there, and it was a really good show. That's where Chase Elliott ended up winning. I'm excited about it. This is something where I want to mention the SMI buyout of Dover ownership group, because they own Dover and they own Nashville Super Speedway. I hope that we don't lose Nashville Super Speedway. I could understand why they might do it.
I'm in the same boat. I love Nashville Super Speedway.
Yeah,
we talked about that. So.
This race here this year, maybe it was a flunk, but I think it was awesome.
I thought it was great.
I think it also, we appreciate it more because we don't see throttle time or lack thereof as a real thing in the Cup Series at most tracks because of the 550 package. Obviously, they ran 750 there, but it was a really good race. Here's the thing that really might hurt Dover itself, the track.
Alex Bowman winning. Alex Bowman won. They're done.
Yeah, I don't know if they come back, and I hate to hear that. I mean, we saw this one. Obviously, it's Twitter. You can't trust Twitter.
Yeah, as proven by this weekend's F1 commodities.
Exactly.
You cannot trust Twitter.
We did see someone who claimed to be family with an employee of Dover, and it sounded like they were not going to return after 2022.
I think we read that tweet. Yeah, of course, that's all hearsay. You can't prove that, but I can kind of see that being a possibility. So it's definitely something to keep in the forefront of our minds.
I pray that don't happen. Dover, while the racing has been kind of lackluster the last few years, I think that's been the package's fault more than anything. It's a good track. It is a legend as far as its identity and its marketing with the Monster. Miles the Monster Mile. I would hate to see that track go.
My favorite thing is out front where he's like holding the car.
Yeah.
Like that's such a cool thing to like take pictures with. You know, Bristol has the "It's Bristol, baby" sign. They have the Monster. Kansas probably has a massive ear of corn. I don't know. I've never been there. Daytona has a Bass Pro Shop. I mean, there's all sorts of fun stuff at the tracks.
I hope that doesn't happen. I kind of am seeing the writing on the wall that that's probably what's going to happen. Track's been open since like 55. It's been a staple in the sport forever, but it looks like it's going to be gone. Rip Dover.
Rip Dover.
All right. The last thing I want to talk about.
You said last thing like 7 topics ago.
Well, but it's just the last tracks. Is the North Carolina tracks.
Let's go.
North Carolina passed a bill. I think it's called like the American Rescue Plan or something like that. And it gives $18 million to the famed North Wilkesboro Speedway, $9 million to Rockingham, and then for some reason $9 million to Charlotte Motor Speedway.
Yeah, because they need more money.
Yeah.
They could fix their parking situation a little bit better.
Yeah.
As someone that goes, their parking situation sometimes a little rough, but, it's whatever.
So, North Wilkesboro obviously needs a lot of renovations. They left in 96 to give Texas States.
Boo.
I know. In the even the first races were a disaster. It took them years to get it right. But anyways, they left there in 96 to go to Texas, and they gave the second date to New Hampshire to give them a second date because they really wanted to screw them over. But I guess they just didn't want to run the place. But it looks like they're finally putting the money in to come back there. I think we see at least SRX there by 2023. Hopefully Cup Series by 2025 is my goal. Or I say my goal, my hope.
Me as the leader of this project.
Exactly. Exactly. So we'll see what happens there. Rockingham, I'm actually very curious with something they did. They've actually announced exactly what that $9 million is going towards.
I like the transparency on that.
Yeah, I do. I really do. A repave and lights.
Ask Indy. Lights are important.
I like that idea. I wonder if the infrastructure could use it more than lights.
They're both equally important. So how do you? I couldn't pick one or the other.
I mean, I just think of it. How many? Well, I say this because they didn't have lights, but how many North Carolina Speedway, Rockingham, made its identity as the second race of the year at daytime? It's not something. We don't think of the Bristol night race. We don't think of the Rockingham night race. I feel like that's something that could have been added down the road. But at the same time, it'll be a cool addition. I'll be happy if they can update that night racing soon to race Rockingham at night. I'm curious to see how that goes. Also, one last track that I feel like could make an addition in the next 5 years, Chicago Street Course. We've heard the buzz on that kind of die down the last little bit.
That's the one I'm the most excited for out of all of them.
I'm excited for a street course. I honestly think that, and I mentioned earlier, Long Beach, if you figure something out with that U-turn, that is that last turn, then NASCAR could do it. And I feel like it'd be fun. It may be like a Monaco-esque situation where
go-kart track.
You can't do nothing with it. I think it'd be cool as like an exhibition or a one-off to try it. But like I said, apparently the steering base, you can't steer as far as you could in the old cars and the new ones. That would especially be an issue. That is the kind of outlook on tracks. Obviously, we could say Lucas Oil Speedway, Portland, any of the ones that are making comebacks or appearances in the lower series could make their way up to Cup Series. That is going to be our track talk for the day, and I feel like that's probably going to be our episode for the day.
I think that is. I have one last thing that I'd like to throw in here that is not NASCAR related. Going back to F1.
Okay.
Just for a moment, because I think this is super cool.
Okay.
People were mad about the race and how it was going to kill F1. How nobody's going to watch F1 anymore. You tend to forget who the winner was. I think it would have been very damaging if it was reversed and Max Verstappen was going to win, and then they gave it to 7-time Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
So the song Supermax by the Pit Stop Boys is like, it's like everybody uses it as like Max theme song. It's super catchy. It's probably going to be the intro song to this episode. It was trending at number 5 on Spotify, global.
Yeah.
It was number 1 in the Netherlands, number 4 in Italy, number 2 in the UK. Lewis Hamilton's home country was streaming the song of the dude that beat him.
That's hilarious.
And then it does stuff there. Belgium, number 3. Austria, number 4. Denmark, number 2. Ireland, number 2. Norway, 4. Portugal, 2. South Africa, 3. Spain, 2. Like
just everywhere.
Everywhere. Everyone's listening to the Max song. Because I think for a lot of people, it was a landmark moment of the evil has been defeated.
Yeah.
The big bad wolf has been killed. And everybody is so happy, except for Lewis Hamilton. We checked Twitter as we were doing the episode. Lewis Hamilton fans still mad. He did get knighted today. Congratulations on that. Very worthy of being knighted.
Sir Lewis Hamilton.
I think that they probably planned that so he would be knighted when he got his 8th and broke the record.
And then he didn't, and now it's just kind of awkward.
Now he did. Well, he still got knighted. He was going to get knighted either way. But yeah, fun fact there. But I think that will do it. That's all I've got.
That's all I got. I've talked everybody's ear off.
You've talked a lot today.
Yeah, well, I had that research on those tracks. I was excited about that. You've been listening to Right Sides Only, where if you ain't right,
you get left. Boogity, boogity, boogity. Amen.